Hello and welcome to Useful Idiots Monday Morning, where we watch the Sunday morning news show so that you do not have to. I'm Katie Halper.
I'm Aaron Maté. Good Monday morning, everybody. Thanks so much for being here. Our website is usefulidiotspodcast.com. Go there to support the show, get bonus content. A little peek under the hood. I mean, let's be transparent this week, Katie. A lot of tariff talk on the Sunday morning news shows.
It makes me miss doc talk, Aaron. That's how boring this is.
It's hard to, we're always looking for, good material we can make fun of, or we can say something insightful. We can have a little good time. But in talking about bond yields, treasuries, it's hard to grasp on a subject. So we did our best for this week. And of course, in all seriousness, the issue of our time continues to be ignored by our corporate media. What happened this week? Israel bombed a major hospital in Gaza, the Baptist hospital, a Christian hospital in Gaza, destroyed its emergency wing. And did the Sunday shows cover it? No, they didn't even acknowledge it. It wasn't even acknowledged because we've completely normalized this machine of mass murder that we're arming inside Israel. And that's the media we're dealing with. That's the society we're in, where mass murders become normalized, and that's the media that makes it normal. But right. There was one exception, right, on corporate TV this weekend. Am I frozen or is Katie?
Sorry about that. Am I connected now? I'm sorry about that.
Yeah.
It's almost like
you're back.
We're being censored as we try to play actually good media. Sorry, Aaron.
Well, I was just saying, there was one exception, right, on corporate TV.
Oh, yes, there was one exception. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. And that exception was from the Ayman show, which is on MSNBC. Ayman Moyeldin is his name, and his show is called, it's just the Ayman show. He actually did on his weekend show, which is weekends at nighttime. It's going away soon, though, coincidentally, right? Because it's so good on this. He is going to return in some other combination show with a couple of other co-hosts, but it is notable that he's the best voice left on MSNBC. He's been the best voice on MSNBC, among the best voices on this forever. And now he's definitely basically the only good one left. So we're going to show you a clip from his show, because this is what every single morning show, if we lived in a democracy and if we had a democratic media and we had a media that wasn't bought and controlled, this is what every morning show and every news show in general would be showing.
With America and the world's attention on tariffs and Donald Trump, Israel's onslaught of Gaza and the people in it continues. This morning, Israel struck the El Ahli hospital, the last major hospital providing care in northern Gaza. This is NBC News footage of the aftermath. One patient, a girl, died during the evacuation because staff were unable to provide urgent care. Israel claimed once again that it struck a Hamas command and control center within the hospital without providing any evidence. Remember, this is the same hospital that caused so much controversy when it was bombed on October 17th of 2023, with both sides trading blame on who actually bombed it. At the time, the Israeli military said it couldn't be them because, quote, hospitals are not a target. We would never target a hospital.
Okay, so just to pause here, so that's just a blatant lie. And every single person who defended Israel and claimed they just don't do that has to be eating their words, because it's I don't even know how many hospitals later that they've bombed. At first, the claim was that they would never do this, not a target. They lied. And then the claim became that there was active Hamas. There was Hamas center in there. And as we've gone over before, their evidence of this was literally a calendar that had the names of the week in Arabic. That was one of one of the smoking guns to prove that there is Hamas control. Not for this hospital, I don't think, but for another one.
There are 36 hospitals in Gaza that have either been fully or partially destroyed by Israel.
Yeah.
36.
So take that, every single person who lied and pretended that this is just something that Israel wouldn't do. All right, let's keep playing.
Today, they are bombing hospitals out in the open and taking credit for it. A UN report from late last year said that at least 130 strikes by Israel on at least 27 hospitals and 12 other medical facilities, killing many doctors, nurses, medics, and other civilians. How did we get to this point, you might ask? How is it that something that was considered an atrocity 18 months ago, that captured the world's attention and that forced Israel to strongly deny it, is now so common that it barely gets any media attention, almost like background noise? Last month, a funeral service was held for 15 medics and emergency responders who the United Nations said were killed by Israeli troops. Their bodies were found buried in a mass grave, apparently plowed over by Israeli military bulldozers. The Palestinian Red Crescent said that their vehicles were clearly marked and accused Israel of killing them in, quote, cold blood, with some handcuffed and executed. Again, this was strongly denied by the Israeli government, including the foreign minister, Gideon Sa'ar.
Well, the IDF did not randomly attack an ambulance. Last Sunday, several uncoordinated vehicles were identified advancing suspiciously toward IDF troops without headlights or emergency signals.
The Israeli military also repeatedly told this version of the story that you just heard there to the international press, until new footage was discovered from the cell phone of one of the dead medics, and it showed that Israel was lying, a development that was first reported by the New York Times. Now, contrary to Israel's claims, the video shows the medics driving slowly with their emergency vehicles' lights flashing, logos visible, as they pulled up to help an ambulance that had come under fire earlier. The medics do not appear to be acting unusually or in a threatening manner. Their vehicles immediately come under a barrage of gunfire and gunshots, and that continues for more than 5 minutes. The owner of the phone is then heard reciting his final prayers, asking for acceptance from God and asking for forgiveness from his mother for choosing this profession of being a paramedic. Israel is now acknowledging inaccuracies in its original story and promising a thorough examination, but that's like an arsonist promising to investigate the fire. We have seen this story time and time again, and we shouldn't have to wait for the New York Times to validate these stories to a Western audience. Israel has killed more than 100 civil defense workers and more than 1,000 health workers since October 7th, according to the UN. The images we have seen from the past month alone have been beyond disturbing, and a warning that some we're about to show you are graphic. This is footage that NBC News recently captured in the aftermath of an Israeli air attack on a school-turned-shelter in Gaza City. At least 27 people, some of them children, were killed in the strike and 70 others injured, according to the Palestinian Health Ministry. The Israeli military claimed that they had destroyed what they called a Hamas command and control center and numerous militants. Again, no evidence. Haven't we heard that explanation before? This is what the aftermath of the bombing site looked like. Here, a man holds the clothes belonging to the unborn child of his 9-month pregnant sister, who was killed in the strike alongside her husband and mother. But the worst images are the ones that I cannot show you on this TV. A journalist being burned alive, unable to move, and no one able to rescue him from the flames. Doctors operating on a young boy whose entire chest is missing. We have also seen a number of babies decapitated, as depicted here by Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist Mona Chalabi. In one haunting photo, a man is crying, kissing the severed head of his dead son. At least 100 children are reported killed or injured every day in Gaza since Netanyahu ended the ceasefire in March with a green light from Donald Trump, according to UNRWA. And that's just from the bombings. According to UNICEF, no food, fuel, medicine, or other essentials have been allowed into Gaza since March 2nd, the longest period of aid blockage since the start of the war. The World Food Program recently announced that all bakeries in Gaza have shut down due to a severe lack of fuel and flour. And a sign of how normalized this has all become, Benjamin Netanyahu was welcomed back at the White House on Monday. Netanyahu's flight to Washington took about 13 hours longer than normal. That's because the flight path had to avoid countries that might enforce the ICC's arrest warrant against him for his alleged war crimes. But instead of being brought to justice, he was welcomed with open arms to continue discussions about ethnically cleansing Gaza. Whether it's Democrats or Republicans in charge, it's business as usual. This normalization brings to mind Hannah Arendt's concept of the banality of evil, which she developed while covering the trial of Nazi official Adolf Eichmann in Jerusalem. The banality of evil is the idea that evil does not have the villainous appearances that we might think it does. Evil doesn't have horns and a tail. Rather, evil is perpetuated when immoral principles become normalized over time. It becomes commonplace, the norm, something that happens every day, slowly becoming acceptable. And ordinary people going about their everyday lives, becoming complicit actors in this system that is perpetuating this evil. While Arendt developed this idea while studying Nazi Germany, she argued that this systemic oppression and the slow normalization of evil can actually occur anywhere. Well, it is staring us in the face right now.
So honestly, so much respect for Ayman for this segment, which again, I mean, it's actually it's infuriating and sad that it's so exceptional. These are stories that everyone should be showing. His analysis, his kind of op-ed framing of this is exceptional, and that's not necessarily expected from everyone, but the content is expected from everyone. I mean, it's the least that they could do. So yeah, I think it's really important. It's basically like, and this is what every other Monday, Sunday morning news show should be showing.
Yeah, as you said, they don't even acknowledge the facts that he's reporting. Just
Right.
the murder of the medics, the cover-up, the open endorsement of ethnic cleansing, the bombing of the hospital. These have become totally normalized, and so that's why somebody putting all those stories together and offering accurate analysis that we've normalized genocide is completely rare. It's all basically, when it comes to corporate media, it's all on Ayman's shoulders, and so
Right.
kudos to him and his staff for continuing to do their job when no one else will. It's really impressive, and it's sad that they're alone.
And it's also sad that his show is not going to continue as is. I mean, it's no coincidence that this is the show that we are showing a clip of as being exceptionally good on this issue. It's no coincidence that it's not going to continue as the Ayman show. He is staying at the network, but it's a new show and it has co-hosts. And you know that there is that very chilling image of the journalist who was sitting in the chair while the fire was ablaze. Wilson, I'm going to send this to you. Sorry.
No, we don't want to show it. No, we're not going to show it.
Even that's too.
No,
okay.
no.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
But the reason why he was
I know I was going to explain.
Engulfed in flames and couldn't get up is because he was hit with shrapnel, which left him paralyzed.
Yeah.
So he had to be burned, and he couldn't move because he was paralyzed.
Yeah.
And then he passed away.
Yeah.
From his injuries.
Engulfed in flames. Yeah. So that's what Mossab Abu Toha, the great poet we've had on his show, he communicated that the journalist Ahmad Mansour, his brother communicated that he had been hit by a piece of shrapnel in the head. So that's, that is an image that should be seared into everyone's brains. But most people won't even see it. So yeah. And one other thing I just want to add about the banality of evil, I think it's really brave of Ayman to mention something that is a critique, an analysis that was applied to the Nazis. I mean, I think it's really brave to do that. Now, he's not equating them. He's not saying they're the same thing, but people like Arendt, who of course was Jewish, were saying that this is not unique to Hitler and wouldn't be unique to Hitler. And this is an example of some of that. And I think one of the main differences, though, is that in the case of the Nazis, there was no ritual celebration of these crimes. So it was, I think, even easier to normalize them. Now there's really no excuse because they're done in such a gleeful, sadistic way that, I don't even know if it's normalization, because I think for so many people, it never was a problem. Like they never cared about the deaths of Palestinians in the first place. So anyway, shall we go to Meet the Depressed?
Let's go to Meet the Depressed.
And everyone, please like the stream because we have to watch that.
NBC News in Washington, the longest-running show in television history. This is Meet the Press with Kristen Welker.
Good Sunday morning. As the president's trade war enters a new week, the uncertainty and disruption to the global economic order is growing. Just hours after President Trump's tariffs took effect this week, he made a stunning reversal and pressed pause for 90 days.
Well, I thought that people were jumping a little bit out of line. They were getting yippy, you know, they were getting a little bit yippy, a little bit afraid.
After asking Americans to hang tough and be cool, President Trump made his about face in a social media post, and it came after claiming a pause.
By the way, I mean, is this the proper term use of the term yippee? Like when I hear yippee, I think of like yippee, like we're excited.
Right. Yeah.
But so I'm asking this seriously. I haven't looked. Is that like a real word, yippee? Like,
well, it is. It makes me think of the Youth International Party from the 1960s. Yeah.
Okay.
How do we think we spell this? I-E or Y?
No, like YIPPY. But I just I've never heard of that term before. I'm asking seriously. Did Trump make this word up, or is it a real word? Like, because yippee means like basically you're complaining, you're getting jumpy,
right?
Jittery, you know, and that's what he's referring to is basically his rich friends from Wall Street were mad because the stock market was tanking, and so was the bond market too.
Jumpy.
So was the bond market. So that's anyway.
Can you hear me?
So regardless, yeah, I can hear you. But I'm finishing this thought that basically, Trump, whether the word is real or not, Trump was basically, he was getting jittery because his Wall Street friends were getting jittery, and then he caved and backed down on his tariffs and announced a 90-day pause to most of them, except for on China, which he's maintained. But even there too, he's made exceptions as well. Yeah.
Aaron, do you think he meant jumpy?
I do think, jittery, jumpy, something like that. Yeah.
Would not happen.
Would you be open to a pause in tariffs to allow for negotiations?
Well, we're not looking at that.
Almost all foreign countries still face a 10% tariff. China's tariffs have now increased to 145%. But late Friday, President Trump decided to exclude electronic imports, including smartphones, laptops, flat screens, and computer chips from the new tariffs, adding to the confusion. More than 70% of all smartphones sold in the U.S. are made in China. It was a roller coaster week on Wall Street as the administration urged Americans to remain patient.
There'll be a transition cost and transition problems, but in the end, it's going to be a beautiful thing.
We will end up in a place of great certainty over the next 90 days on tariffs.
The administration insists this was the plan all along, but the abrupt pause in those initial tariffs came after the Treasury Secretary and Commerce Secretary raised serious concerns over the bond market. President Trump also said he was watching Jamie Dimon, the leader of the country's largest bank, on television.
Do you personally expect a recession?
I am going to defer to my economists at this point, but I think probably that's a likely outcome.
By the way, we showed this clip last week with Richard Wolff. So I think this is pretty clear that Maria watches Useful Idiots for her news.
Thank God for Fox Business. They might have saved the economy from a recession. Just, Trump was watching this. He saw his favorite host, Maria Bartiromo. Yeah. And then Jamie Dimon, also presumably a friend of his, head of JP Morgan. And that was enough for him to reverse course just by seeing Jamie Dimon make a warning on Fox Business. So Fox Business deserves some sort of award for saving the economy.
Yeah, and so do we for streaming it last week.
Fears of a recession are driving consumer sentiment to plunge, with inflation worries rising. Calls from allies to reverse course had been growing in the days before President Trump's change in plans. Elon Musk publicly broke with Trump on the issue, calling for a zero tariff situation, attacking the White House's top trade advisor, Peter Navarro, as a, quote, moron and dumber than a sack of bricks. The White House downplayed the public spat.
These are obviously two individuals who have very different views on trade and on tariffs. Boys will be boys, and we will let their public sparring continue.
And
so charming. Boys will be boys.
Yeah.
I love this idea of like, all this like sparring between two ultra wealthy Trump advisors as the economy crashes. Like, boys will be boys. And then people are like, undergoing mass deprivation and panic, and boys will be boys.
Yeah, they should just play that like on loop whenever they're asked a challenging question.
Yeah, boys will be boys.
Yeah.
Well, these boys in charge are causing a lot of panic, even amongst their own people. It's and then of course you have on top of that the whole possibility of war with Iran. You have the ongoing attacks on Yemen, and there's rumors that the U.S. will back a ground invasion of Yemen. There's a lot going on right now to cause panic, but the Trump team, they're staying on brand. They think their guy Trump is doing a wonderful thing, and according to Stephen Miller, top aide to Trump, Donald Trump has basically saved the West from China. And here's Stephen Miller.
Every single day and put a spotlight on the bad behavior, and that's being nice about it.
Okay, here's another fun game to play while you watch this. Who has a more annoying voice, Maria or Steven? Okay.
Every single day and put a spotlight on the bad behavior, and that's being nice about it, of communist China. Why is it that we allow them to roll over America and undermine this great country every day?
Can I answer that question for all this like vitriol thrown at China? And I'm not an expert on China's like trade practices. I'm sure they do some shady things, right? But also, here's the problem. China didn't force any U.S. corporation to offshore all their jobs in manufacturing there. Like China wasn't like, didn't hold a gun to anyone's head. That was the fault of corporations. And how come they're never called out for their decisions, which was in their interest because they want to maximize profit, and they saw an opportunity to do that in China? How come there's no criticism of them? It's all China's fault that a bunch of U.S. corporations decided that they can make more money if they moved manufacturing over to China. It just seems like that's missing from the equation. And then we complain. And then there's also the fact that China invests a lot of money and resources in education and infrastructure, and we don't. So is that possibly a factor in maybe China doing better than we are in some departments economically? Plus the fact they just have a lot of people. It's a big country. But everything is reduced to like this nefarious Chinese plot to like destroy America, when really it just sounds like if there's anything nefarious, it was the decision of profiteers to try to seek more profit in China.
Yeah, I like the idea that they made us do it. Like U.S. corporations have no agency. They're all at the mercy of the evil communist China. All right, let's play a little bit more of this painful clip.
And they've done it for decades. It is shameful that core elements of our industrial base, our medical base, our manufacturing base, our pharmaceutical base, our defense base, our electronic components, our chips, our critical minerals, that all of the things that power a country, we've allowed those supply chains to be centered in China, to give China the ability to.
I like the way he sounds like a real Valley Girl here. He goes up at the end like it's a question. Let's just hear that again.
To give.
Hold on. We've allowed all these supply. Hold on.
To be centered in China, to give China the ability to exert that kind of control over the rest of the world through these illicit means, that's unthinkable. President Trump, history will record that the actions President Trump has taken in recent days were the beginning of saving the West from complete economic domination by another power.
But look,
I gotta say, it's refreshing that he's being like imperialist and racist against people in other countries like the Chinese government as opposed to here in the US of A, because that's really his like area of that's kind of his fort, is to vilify immigrants. So he's branching out. Yeah.
And listen, if you're among those people whose 401ks, whose retirement has tanked because of Trump's tariffs, just know that this happened because Trump saved you from domination by China. So yes, right. Even if you've lost a lot of money, even if you're worried now about your pension, at least you won't be living under Xi Jinping. Okay. So that's the trade-off, everybody. So yes, you had to lose your life savings, maybe take a second job, but it was all a sacrifice so that we're not living under Chinese rule. That's, I think, what I'm hearing from Stephen Miller there.
Yeah, it's a cult. Yeah. It's actually a cult. It's part of the culture war. So yeah, who knew? Well, let's move on and take a look at what our trade United States Secretary of Commerce, what the Secretary of Commerce, Howard Lutnick, had to say about this kind of about face, this yippee instigated about face.
Saying that the big tariffs on things like smartphones and laptops, iPhones, all those iPhones built in China, that those tariffs are temporarily off, but they're going to be coming right back on in another form in a month or so? Or what are you saying?
Correct. That's right. That's right. Semiconductors and pharmaceuticals will have a tariff model in order to encourage them to reshore, to be built in America. We need our medicines and we need semiconductors and our electronics to be built in America. We can't be beholden and rely upon foreign countries for fundamental things that we need. We can't be relying on China for fundamental things that we need. Our medicines and our semiconductors need to be built in America. Donald Trump is on it. He's calling that out. So you should understand these are included in the semiconductor tariffs that are coming and the pharmaceuticals are coming. Those two areas are coming in the next month or two. So this is not like a permanent sort of exemption. He's just clarifying that these are not available to be negotiated away by countries. These are things that are national security that we need to be made in America.
The president's made it.
So what he's saying here is that, Trump announced this exemption when it comes to Chinese imports or imports from China, and that includes smartphones and chips. But Howard Lutnick is saying the exemption is not permanent. It's going to be actually lifted pretty soon. So, which means the cost of smartphones is going to be massive if this holds, which I don't think most people will be happy with. But from his point of view, Howard Lutnick's point of view, remember last week he was a guy saying that like American workers are going to be screwing in iPhones, right? So he's got to stick to that plan. So, I mean, that's why I think he's hopeful that this tariff exemption by Trump on smartphones is temporary, because he wants to see American workers screwing in iPhones. And so that's the vision he's still pursuing.
Yeah. And, it is fun to watch. I mean, not that I usually peruse Trump's Truth Social, but he did say on Sunday, he said that there's no tariff exception announced on Friday. These products are subject to the existing 20% fentanyl tariffs, and they are just moving to a different tariff bucket. The fake news knows this, but refuses to report it. We are taking a look at semiconductors and the whole electronic supply chain in the upcoming national security tariff investigations.
And again, listen, not my forte. I'm not a manufacturer. By imposing these tariffs, then all of a sudden manufacturing is going to bounce back here in the U.S. Like, the problem is it takes like a lot more government intervention than that, which countries like China have, where like you invest in factories, you put government money into jobs and infrastructure projects, which the Trump administration I don't think wants to do. I think they want the so-called free market to take care of everything, but that's just not what happens, because companies especially are interested in their short-term growth, not long-term planning. Right. And so I just don't see where all the manufacturing is going to come from just because you're putting tariffs on foreign goods. What I just see in the short term is just higher prices and scarcity. That seems to be the likely outcome. But again, as Trump's flunkies like to say, this is the guy who wrote The Art of the Deal. So what do we know?
What do we know? Yeah. Also, one thing I will say about there's kind of this myth of the free market that happens under Republicans. And really what you have is you do have government intervention. It's just on the side and on behalf of corporations. So, yeah, it's never even a free market. It's just a one-sided government intervention. Also, guys, please like the stream. I mean, can you imagine we have to watch all this tariff talk? Even worse than doc talk. So like the stream. Also subscribe if you haven't already, and share the stream. And to subscribe, you just hit subscribe and then press the bell. But do like this. It helps the algorithm, and we face a lot of suppression here. I'm not gonna lie. So you can help us fight the oligarchy. You got Bernie and AOC doing their thing, well, we're doing our own thing. And unlike the Bernie AOC stuff, you don't have to go in person. And you can just participate with a thumbs up. It's pretty cool. Edit. What do we got next? Oh, this is a good one. Yeah.
So Howard Lutnick, he was asked about recent comments from Vice President J.D. Vance. And we'll just let J.D. Vance speak for himself.
Yeah. The president's called President Xi a friend. He said the Chinese are proud people. Can you explain to me what the vice president was saying not long ago when he referred to the Chinese people as peasants? Let me play the sound so you can hear it.
We borrow money from Chinese peasants to buy the things those Chinese peasants manufacture. That is not a recipe for economic prosperity. It's not a recipe for low prices, and it's not a recipe for good jobs in the United States of America.
Did the vice...
First of all, who uses the word peasant anymore? Yeah. Like unless you're like a
historian,
nostalgic for like monarchy, like these peasants, Right. But is JD Vance like a monarchist? Like he wants to go back to feudal times where you'd serve and peasants. Also just so demeaning to Chinese people. We're borrowing money from Chinese peasants.
Yeah,
very silly.
These peasants who meanwhile have a much better train system, for instance, than we do. Somehow these peasants have a much more industrialized travel system. They can go places much more quickly than the lords over here, to continue that metaphor. But maybe, Aaron, this is like, when people are allowed to use offensive words if it's their own people. Remember, J.D. Vance is of hillbilly descent. He wrote that bestseller Hillbilly Elegy, so maybe he feels like he can use the P word, the peasant word. Just spitballing.
Interesting. So he's like invoking his working class privilege.
Exactly.
Well, anyway, Howard Lutnick was put on the spot about this, and let's see how he handles it.
President go off message there? I mean, he's calling the Chinese peasants. This is something that we heard the Chinese say was ignorant and disrespectful. I mean, I haven't heard Donald Trump talk that way about the Chinese.
No, I'm just going to step back and really just leave the vice president to let him defend himself. He knows what he meant, and we all know what he meant, which is that, the Chinese have...
Which is that the Chinese are peasants,
right,
and that we borrow from them. That's what he meant, because that's what he said.
Right.
That's what he said. Yeah.
Thanks for the breakdown. Yeah.
Have basically attacked America and ripped us off by undercutting our businesses. By the government of China assists their businesses to undercut our businesses, drive them out of business, and take that manufacturing over to China. It's happening.
As opposed to our government, we never assist our corporations.
Right.
There's a firewall between government and corporations. We never cross that line. What a complete joke. Like we literally overthrow governments if they don't, lower wages to a sufficient level demanded by our corporations, or like in Guatemala, like United Fruit Company. You know what I mean? This is so silly.
We use structural readjustments. That's another thing that we do, right? Where we demand that they basically slash funding for things in order to get loans.
Yeah, exactly. And we're intervening in economies all the time by like imposing sanctions
Yeah.
that like make some economies not able to function. Like literally, like they can't borrow, they can't be part of the financial system because we impose these sanctions that like are the most government interventionist instrument you can possibly have, where we make entire economies not work. So this idea that like, you know, it's China that interferes in their economy and props up their businesses, we don't, is just, it's so ridiculous. And that's why, by the way, that's why U.S. corporations, I believe, control the majority of the world's wealth. This idea that like China is now like taking over the planet, it's not even supported by facts. Like we still run everything. We just don't want anyone to possibly be in competition, and hence this obsession with China.
Right. You know, and also in addition to the sanctions, Aaron, you talk about this a lot, which are the imposition of secondary sanctions, which bullies other people from trading with the countries that we've deemed to be bad boys. Speaking of boys will be boys. And yeah, I mean, like you said, Aaron, it's like such misplaced blame. It's such obvious deflection. And, you know, I mean, to be fair, Trump was against NAFTA, but obviously something like NAFTA was very damaging, really incentivized like U.S. companies to outsource their manufacturing overseas. But it's much easier to blame the Chinese as opposed to American politicians and their policies. So no surprise there.
Peter Navarro is the brains behind this whole tariffs thing. He's a senior aide to Trump, and he was on Meet the Press.
And remember, this is the one Elon doesn't like. This is the boys will be boys guy, one of the two.
We did see the markets drop. The bond market was spooked. Consumer confidence has plummeted, and inflation fears are at the highest level since 1981. Let me just ask you.
But we did have the greatest rally in stock market history for many, many decades this last week.
But they're down from when the president announced his policies overall. Let me ask you so that we can get this.
Sure. I love that talking point from the Trump team. Like, hey, listen, we had a great rally on the stock market. Like, what are you talking about? Yeah, that was after it crashed.
Exactly.
So it came back a little bit, and you want us to be impressed by that. And again, not that, you know, I want to follow the stock market as like the measure of economic health, but it's just a weird talking point that like you cause a crash, it rebounds a little bit, and then you look at the rebound and say, look at this rally. It's unbelievable. We're such geniuses.
Yeah. Right. It's like it's almost like there's that Malcolm X quote. It's like, it's not progress if you stick a knife into me 6 inches and then you remove it 3 inches.
And I believe Malcolm X was talking about the stock market.
Exactly. You know? As it was his want. Yeah.
That was his passion. Yeah. Yes.
Information to folks. Give me the top line number. How many countries is the administration currently negotiating with to get a trade deal?
Well, let me see how many I can do. And remember, Kristen, we talked offline about this. We started doing this long before.
I feel like it's a little bit of a dig. Like, we talked offline about this, Kristen. Why?
I told you, Kristen. Yeah. I told you. We talked about this. Yeah.
We announced the pause in the reciprocal tariffs in anticipation of this. So we've got the UK, we've got the EU, we've got India, we've got Japan, we've got North Korea, we've got Indonesia.
He meant South Korea, obviously, because North Korea and the U.S. are not doing much trade. The U.S. has North Korea under crippling sanctions. So he meant South Korea.
That would be exciting.
Indonesia.
Yeah, if they were announcing like some like détente with North Korea,
right?
Not going to happen, but yeah.
We've got Israel, and they're just lining up.
Wow, really impressive. I believe the list was like 75 countries, right? He just named, I don't know, like 8 or so. So there's a long list to go, but that's what the Trump administration claims, that their genius move has now forced all these countries to line up and negotiate better trade deals for the U.S. So we'll see how that one goes.
Yeah. Very interesting.
Okay, let's turn to House Speaker Mike Johnson, because, you know, he had a big win recently where the House passed this Republican budget, which includes a massive, massive cut worth hundreds of billions of dollars to the committee that controls Medicaid. And Republicans have insisted, we're not going to cut Medicaid. We're not going to cut Medicaid. We're not going to cut Medicaid. But listen to this new, I believe this is now something new from Mike Johnson.
At the same time, we have to root out fraud, waste, and abuse. We have to eliminate people on, for example, on Medicaid who are not actually eligible to be there. Able-bodied workers, for example, young men who should never be on the program at all. When you have people on the program that are draining the resources, it takes it away from the people that are actually needing it the most and are intended to receive it. You're talking about young single mothers, down on their fortunes at a moment. The people with real disabilities, the elderly, and we've got to protect and preserve that program. So we're going to preserve the integrity of it in this process. We have lots of categories of areas where the government is too large, it does too many things, and the DOGE efforts and others have highlighted that for the American people. So in this process, you're going to see in 11 different committees of jurisdiction across the House, members working hand in hand with their sleeves rolled up, working to carve out those inefficiencies. We're going to make government.
So what I'm hearing here is that they're going to change the eligibility requirements for Medicaid. They're going to make it harder to get Medicaid. That's what I'm hearing here. And this is after they said they're not going to cut benefits.
Exactly.
And basically saying that like able-bodied people shouldn't be on Medicaid. Well, what if they're in a circumstance where actually they need Medicaid? What if there's not enough work available for them and a job that offers them healthcare, as many jobs don't? Are you going to just say that you don't have the right to have healthcare anymore? It's that's what they're doing. That's what they're doing. They're going to take away Medicaid, and they're going to claim that the people they're taking away from don't deserve it. But I think in many cases, if not most cases, you'll find that to be false.
Yeah, excuse me. Sorry. I love the way that they claim to care about like single mothers. This is also like typical divide and conquer and pitting people against each other. But, it's interesting because there is a study published by the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities. And that shows, by the way, that these Republican these Medicaid work requirements could put 36 million people at risk of losing health coverage. Okay, 36 million people. And another thing that the study points out, which is important to know, is that many adults, like able-bodied, as Mike Johnson likes to call them, who use Medicaid actually do have disability. They just haven't qualified as disabled yet for a multitude of reasons, including it's like requires so much paperwork. It's so easy to have red tape disasters. They definitely make it hard for people to get disability. So, this is just a perfect combination of the way that our government uses like a combination of tactics to really screw people over. And it's absolutely abhorrent. This is one of the things that is so embarrassing about our country, the United States, the richest country in the world. And they try to deprive people of healthcare. And this is exactly what we've been saying would happen. They would be doing a lot of carve outs instead of like slashing it officially. They would just make more and more people ineligible. Yeah.
But great news, as we covered on last week's episode of Useful Idiots, Trump has just announced the biggest Pentagon budget ever. He said we're going to spend $1 trillion. So we're going to spend $1 trillion on a Pentagon whose budget is like larger than so many other countries combined, and also can't even pass an audit. But sure, this government cares about waste and fraud.
Yeah, totally convincing. Yeah.
Okay, let's hear from a Democrat, Elizabeth Warren.
Given all the chaos, given the fact that the president's approval ratings are declining, given all the uncertainty in the market, why do you think the Democratic Party has such a low approval rating? I would think this would be an opportunity for Democrats to rise and present an alternative, but it doesn't seem like that's happening. And as you know, your party's approval ratings are historically low.
Look, the way I look at this is that Donald Trump has created a lot of chaos in his first 3 months in Washington. Remember, he started out, made the promise that on day one, he would lower prices for American families. Those were his words, on day one. By the time he gets 2 months in and he's told that his tariff plans will increase costs, his answer was he couldn't care less. I think that the Democrats have really coalesced around the central message. Our job is to fight to lower those costs for American families. Our job is to fight against a Republican Party that not only doesn't care about those families, but is working hard right now while all this chaos is going on to give more tax cuts to billionaires and billionaire corporations. And
See, that's cool, Senator Warren. Like, yeah, you have coalesced around a message, and there is some substance in there. But you're not answering the question. Why do people still not trust Democrats? And to be able to move, there has to be some actual self-reflection, which Democrats just don't want to do. We saw that in 2016 when Trump beat Hillary Clinton. And rather than doing some self-reflection, they blamed Russia and invented a Russia conspiracy theory to explain everything. And we're sort of still living out that process where there's just this like refusal to do some actual self-reflection. And compare that to Trump. Like, what did Trump do on his path to the presidency in 2016? He like ran against the Republican Party. He called them all fake, fraud, sellouts, warmongers. Like, remember the Jeb Bush when he called him and his brother George W. as warmongers? Like,
yep.
You know, Trump, whatever you think of him, and is as much of a fraud Trump has turned out to be in terms of all these promises about helping the working person and being anti-war, he at least had a critique of the party, and Democrats just seem incapable of that. And as long as that sustains itself, I just don't know how they're going to pull people back in. I mean, maybe they're counting on Trump being so bad that people will have to come back to Democrats. And okay, you know what? I think there is something to that. But if you're not going to engage in a meaningful critique, if you're not going to look at the impact of, you know, some of the policies the Democrats push that harm people, including lockdowns, you know, including all the areas in which Democrats are out of step with a lot of people, I just don't think you're going to pull enough people back in. As much as you have a genuine and an actual good critique of Trump, which you hear that from Warren, there is. Like, he is favoring the ultra wealthy. He's pushing through tax cuts for ultra wealthy. His policies don't help working people. Fair enough. But unless you can show how Democrats have changed, I just don't see it really happening.
Yeah. I mean, it's also like another way that they showed that they were totally out of step, of course, is that they stood for genocide when the base really wanted them not to do that. That's probably another way that they established that they were so untrustworthy and not the voice of the people. And also, like, look at what the Democrats are doing right now, not related to genocide, but you have like Chuck Schumer voting with the Republicans, defending his decision to do so, and Hakeem Jeffries saying, what leverage do we have? I will say Warren is a lot better than Cory Booker. Like, I'd much rather listen to her for a few minutes than Cory Booker for 25 hours, saying nothing but platitudes, and then missing an important meeting on Silicon Valley, and then going to vote for a Trump nominee. Yeah. Alrighty. Well, moving on to friend of show, right?
Yeah, Ro kind of, but let's skip ahead to clip number 9 so we can
oh yeah, we're running low on time.
Talk about what's happening in the world. So Trump right now, after criticizing Joe Biden for bombing Yemen when he was running for president, Trump is now bombing Yemen, and even according to some reports talking about backing up a ground invasion of Yemen to overthrow Ansar Allah, aka the Houthis, because Ansar Allah has been intervening against Israeli tied ships to get Israel to respect the ceasefire that it's broken. And Israel has imposed a full-on starvation siege of Gaza. So Ansar Allah has been messing with ships in a bid to get Israel to stop doing that. And so Trump has responded by bombing Yemen, and now talking about escalating that even more. So here's Ro Khanna, Democratic member of Congress, former guest of Useful Idiots, talking about that.
President Trump would need congressional approval to carry out a strike, even if it was just in support of Israel leading that attack on Iran.
Absolutely, and almost a third of our B-2 bombers are there. Look, it's unconstitutional what they're doing in Yemen. I said it was unconstitutional when Biden made those strikes. They need to come to Congress, And look, the president was elected by the American people saying we don't want our tax dollars going for more bombing in the Middle East, for more wars in the Middle East. I think he's ignoring the base that actually elected him that does not want more of these strikes. In the case of Yemen, the Saudis had war there for almost 10 years, and it didn't do anything to address the situation with the Houthis. The president campaigned on diplomacy. He hasn't done that, and what we're seeing is escalation.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And Ro Khanna is one of the few Democrats willing to make that critique, that actually President Trump appealed to people by claiming to be for diplomacy and anti-war, but he's doing the exact opposite. So good for Ro for acknowledging the truth. If only more Democrats could join him.
Yeah, that would be good. Don't hold your breath for that, though. I don't think that's it's something that's very likely to happen. And he was one of the only ones who who stood by that letter calling for diplomacy. Which is really
not to be too nitpicky, but my critique there. So Katie's referring to this letter from congressional progressives a few years ago, asking President Biden to negotiate an end to the war in Ukraine, and they withdrew that letter after a little freak out from neocons online, accusing them of being like Putin appeasers. And yes, Ro Khanna didn't withdraw from the letter, but he also, to defend the letter, he was like, all we were saying was that, we should try to he issued some watered down version of the letter. He couldn't even stick to what the letter actually said, which is like, let's use our leverage to end the war.
Right.
And we're such warmongers that it took 24 hours for the progressives to cave. And even though they've turned out to be completely vindicated by how awful the war is going and the fact that now Trump is bound to end the war anyway. But anyway, good for Ro Khanna for sticking to his guns here. And yeah, he's one of few Democrats who are like opposed to bombing Yemen rather than joining with Trump in doing that on Israel's behalf.
And he's been opposed to it under Biden and Trump. So is that
That's
going
right.
for him too? Yeah.
Rare consistency. It's it's a endangered species in Washington.
You'll love to see it.
Okay. This weekend there were talks between Trump's envoy Steve Witkoff and the Iranian foreign minister about avoiding a whole war in Iran, right? That sounds like a good thing. But you have people inside the White House who love to threaten military strikes on Iran, and Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth is among them.
We've had direct talks yesterday. They began in the past. It's been indirect talks with a mediator, but there's Steve Witkoff meeting with the foreign minister of Iran. What can you tell us?
Well, I can tell you that President Trump is dead serious on this issue. He's dead serious that Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. He's said that for 20 years. He's been consistent. That is clear. He's dead serious that he wants it done at the negotiating table. He wants it done.
So Trump has said for 20 years that Iran shouldn't have a nuclear weapon. Well, Iran has said for more than 20 years, we don't want to have a nuclear weapon, and let's have diplomacy. And they did that. And then Trump broke that deal that they made. So, if Trump was so consistent about Iran getting a nuclear weapon, he shouldn't have broken the agreement that the U.S. made with Iran, the Iran nuclear deal.
Right.
Just a small quibble.
Right.
With the defense secretary.
And also, I mean, this not to help the Hegseth side right now, but it is interesting that Biden did not reconstitute that deal. The deal that his own president had negotiated. Yeah.
Yes, the genius foreign policy team of Joe Biden, led by Antony Blinken and Jake Sullivan, they got back into power, and rather than saying, you know what, why don't we go back to the deal that we negotiated under Obama that Trump, our opponent, who we don't like, broke, they're like, you know what, let's go with Trump here. Yeah, let's stay with Trump's policy.
Keep it.
And
Keep
stay
it
on the
going.
deal. Yeah, so thank you, Joe Biden, for that one.
Yeah.
Okay, more Pete Hegseth.
Fully. And that's why he's going straight to these talks. He set that deadline. These were productive talks yesterday. I don't want to get ahead of our skis. Steve Witkoff does a fantastic job, but it was a good step, and they're gonna go at it again on Saturday. But he's also dead serious that if we can't figure this out at the negotiating table, then there are other options, to include my department, to ensure that Iran never has a nuclear bomb. We hope we never get there. We really do, Maria. But what we're doing with the Houthis and what we're doing in the region, we've shown a capability to go far, to go deep, and to go big. And again, we don't want to do that. But if we have to, we will, to prevent the nuclear bomb in Iran's hands.
to go far, to go deep, to go big.
Yeah.
You know, he's talking about like
FDB.
Yeah, he's talking about like bombing a massive, powerful country as if it's like a football play. And yeah, going far and deep and big means killing a lot of people and getting a lot of people killed. That's what that means. But they're happy to threaten it because that's just what we do.
Yeah. That's yeah. It's it reminds me of the Green Day song Holiday, where Green Day says bombs away is your punishment. If you don't agree to everything we say, bombs away is your punishment. Basically. Yeah.
Well, let's bring Green Day in to help
to.
facilitate these talks. Yeah.
And
yeah.
they've been good on Palestine, actually. They just said something at Coachella.
Okay, nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Green Day, come on the show.
Okay, well, Pete Hegseth is not done issuing threats because he's also got his sights set on the Panama Canal.
Exclusive. Secretary, great to see you this morning. Thanks so much for joining us.
Of course.
Tell us about the trip and what are the most important takeaways that we need to understand about the Panama Canal.
Well, President Trump said in his State of the Union address, China has too much influence over the Panama Canal and America's going to take it back. And that's exactly what I was charged to do, what we're continuing to do. China's influence cannot control our own backyard, especially a critical waterway, key terrain like the Panama Canal. You mentioned 40% of ships are U.S. ships. 75% are going to or from a port. So we were able to secure two historic agreements, one with the Panama Canal Authority, that our ships, our military vessels and auxiliary vessels will travel first and free through that Panama Canal. And then we also signed a memorandum of understanding with the Defense Secretary.
First and free, so like they're getting like a first-class upgrade, it sounds like, you know. Well, that's really exciting that our ships will be first, you know. Wouldn't want China's ships being right. ahead, you know. It's like it's great we're getting that upgrade. Okay
Over there, and the president that established a robust and growing U.S. presence, right? You need to secure.
All right, well, sounds like we're gonna go maybe to war over the Panama Canal, which nobody voted for. I don't recall this being a central plank of Trump's campaign, but Pete Hegseth is very excited about it.
Yeah, and it doesn't go along well with it does go along well with Greenland, which was also not something he campaigned on.
Yeah, funny comment here from Ware Pilgrim. They get to cash in their frequent sailing miles. LOL. That's right.
Oh yeah.
There's a lot of sailing miles in those canals. You know what I mean? So if we can rack up those sailing miles, that's a big win for America. You know, we can get some good things out of that.
Yeah.
5% off of port rentals, you know, higher, you know, like a preferential dock treatment. You know, these things add up. So very exciting stuff. Yeah, listen, this is not an issue I follow very closely. China is involved in the Panama Canal. This idea that they control it is just not true. But I don't know. Isn't the whole point of like global trade commerce is that countries can like engage in trade and commerce? Why are we so threatened by China being involved in the Panama Canal? That's beyond me. But given that the U.S. has like naval ships in Asia, has military bases surrounding China, this idea that somehow China is a threat because they're involved in the Panama Canal just doesn't really fly with me. But anyway, what do I know? I'm not the defense secretary.
Yeah. Something tells me, though, that they're not really concerned with Panamanian sovereignty.
Definitely not.
Yeah.
No, definitely not. Definitely not. All right. Should we wrap the show there?
Sure. Yeah. Please do give the show a like if you haven't already. We did have to sit through a lot of painful tariff talk clips. Thank you, Wade Worth, for your generous chat. Thank you for this comment. Let's see. Albino baby, my retired charge nurse mom at 90 is getting pissed. The bank won't take her bucket of change. They make her take it to the grocery store where a machine takes 12.7% to issue currency. Yeah, it's we have a lot to look forward to. Oh, and Jerry, I didn't know this. Jerry Rubin, the Yippie, died last week. Also, can I make a little announcement about my shows this week?
Yeah.
Okay. So as people may know, hopefully, my show is usually Tuesday nights at 7 p.m. And this week I have a great lineup. I'm going to be talking to comedian Lee Camp and also journalist Alex Kane, who has a great piece about who funds the Canary Mission, the evil Canary Mission, which likes to dox people. And it's totally asymmetrical warfare because they're anonymous while they expose other people and try to get them blacklisted and blackballed. I'm not on their page. Are you, Aaron?
I haven't checked. I don't know.
Yeah, it makes me feel a little inadequate that I haven't made it to the Hall of Fame. But Monday night, as in tonight, there is a special Seder in the streets that a lot of organizations like Jewish Voice for Peace and If Not Now and Shoresh, which is a U.S.-based organization that's anti-Zionist, that's made up of Israelis in the States. They're doing a Seder in the streets, and I'm going to be hosting a stream of it. And that's at 5 p.m. at youtube.com/The Katie Halper Show. And guests include Brant Rosen, who has a great piece about how Jews really need to reckon with the genocide this Passover. Also, we have joining the chat Professor Josh Howley, who is a professor at Columbia. He's going to go over the ways that Columbia is betraying freedom of speech. And also their students, including, of course, Khalil Mahmoud. And we're also going to have on a lawyer for Khalil Mahmoud. So, Mahmoud Khalil. I just inverted it. A lawyer for Mahmoud Khalil, who's great. Sheza, who spoke at the event that we were at, Aaron, at Ethical Culture. So she's a great speaker. So yeah, tune into that also. Oh, wait, I forgot this. I'm co-hosting with Najla Saeed.
Very
Very
cool.
talented writer, actress, and daughter of the late Edward Said.
Very cool. So that's tonight at 5 o'clock Eastern time.
Yeah.
At the Katie Halper Show YouTube.
Yep.
Okay. Just a little question. Jerry Rubin, I think, died like 30 years ago. Just FYI.
Wait, did he?
Yeah. Yeah. But listen, on to more important things. Let me announce a few things. This film is in theaters. This film is in theaters right now, and I really want to strongly recommend it. It's called The Teacher. It's a movie that takes place in the occupied West Bank. It's so good. I saw it last night. It's the first film I've seen in a theater in like 3 years. First film I've watched.
Never go to movies or watch movies.
But it was so worth it. It's so well done. It stars the incredible Saleh Bakri, who comes from a really prominent family of Palestinian artists. Directed by Fada Nabulsi. It's so good. I can't recommend it enough. It's playing across the country right now, put up by Watermelon Pictures. The Teacher. Please go see it. You will not be disappointed. It's just really, really fantastic. Obviously I'm saying this as an outsider. I'm not Palestinian, but for what it's worth, I just think in one movie it captures so many dimensions of the Palestinian struggle. The sacrifices people have to make, the dilemmas they go through, the toll it puts on families, on personal lives. And there's even a dimension that was really, that I just really appreciated as an outsider of international solidarity. The international solidarity plays a role too in the struggle for Palestinian freedom. So please go see The Teacher. It's out now. And I also want to announce this event if you're in New York City. On May 5th, my dad, Gabor, and Chris Hedges will be speaking together in an event called Palestine, the Moral Issue of Our Time. It's going to be at the New York Society for Ethical Culture. All proceeds will go to benefit the Middle East Children's Alliance, which does relief work in Gaza. We'll put a link to it in the show notes for this episode, but you can see there it's at tickets are at meccaxnyc.eventbrite.com. It's going to be a great event benefiting a great cause. And if you're around New York City, May 5th, hope you can make it.
Yes, I'm definitely going to go. And I definitely want to see The Teacher. And also I saw the great film The Encampments, which I recommend also. And you're canceled, Patrick, for saying that Jerry Rubin died recently.
Katie, I think it's a Norm Macdonald joke where he says, "Yippee! Jerry Rubin died." Oh, sorry, that's supposed to be red.
Oh,
Yippee! Jerry
all
Rubin
right.
died.
You're uncanceled. I'm canceling myself for not getting that joke. Okay, got it. So that's my fault. I did also announce that Vanessa Redgrave had died because I thought she had, but she's alive. Thank God. That was funny on my show. All right, and we will see you next week. And of course, we'll be releasing our show this week, so stand by for that. And we all hope that you enjoyed our interview with Richard Wolff, and make sure you get the extended interview at usefulidiotspodcast.com. Bye, everyone.